First to what's been happening, the big set-piece speeches today. Both Bill Shorten and Scott Morrison making their final pitches into, well, very different speeches, different in tone, different in content, of course, as well. Bill Shorten went back to the same hall Gough Whitlam used in 1972, 47 years ago, in his It's Time campaign. Shorten really trying to embrace the energy of that Whitlam era and inject some of that buzz and excitement into his own campaign in these final couple of days. He had plenty of cheering Labor faithful in the room there with him to do just that, and they did manage to pull off a pretty high-energy event. Scott Morrison, by contrast, was here in Canberra, not with cheering crowds of party supporters, but the National Press Gallery at the National Press Club posing questions to him. He gave a strong speech as well, where he said it's not time for change. Amongst the questions, though, revelations today in the US news site Politico that late last year Australia let in 2 Rwandans suspected of involvement in a massacre some years ago in Uganda. This part of the refugee swap deal Malcolm Turnbull struck with Barack Obama for the US to take hundreds of refugees from Manus Island and Nauru. The Prime Minister stonewalled on these questions, though, saying only that those who've come into Australia under this arrangement have been properly security vetted. More from James Adoherty.
Okay.
Campaigns are about being seen.
Mr. Morrison, nice to see you.
And making your mark on marginal seat voters in the hope for some love on polling day.
Liberal or Labor? Liberal. You're what kid?
But any campaign can serve up some unexpected obstacles, and Scott Morrison is facing a doozy. According to an extraordinary report from Politico, Australia's resettled 2 Rwandan men accused of murder over an attack in 1999. Politico says the men, former members of the Hutu rebels group, confessed to their involvement in the murder of 4 Britons, 2 Americans and 2 New Zealanders who were visiting Uganda. According to the reports, the men were resettled in November as part of the Australia-US resettlement arrangement struck by Malcolm Turnbull and Barack Obama. They had already spent 15 years in US custody.
Can you give an assurance here today, a guarantee, that no suspected murderers have been allowed in under your government's watch?
I can assure you that the full security and character test assessments were undertaken by our security agencies in relation to all persons who have entered Australia.
If there is a change of government, I would expect a new government to seek urgent briefings on the situation.
The reports come as Scott Morrison made his final set-piece pitch to voters for a re-elected coalition government, saying Australians don't want big spending, big taxing promises.
What they're looking for is something that's real, something that's credible, something that's achievable.
Scott Morrison emphasised the choice facing voters in a speech mainly focused on the dangers of Labor.
If only their capacity to spend money was as good as their capacity to want to spend money.
In his final set-piece speech of the campaign, Scott Morrison urging voters to give his government another 3 years on the record of its past 6, declaring now is not the time for change.
I'm just getting started. The hunger for Australia and achieving the aspirations of Australia, it is burning deep within me.
We'll find out if the nation is hungry for Scott Morrison come Saturday. James Adoherty, Sky News, Canberra.